The confetti was still falling like pastel snow around our backyard when I felt Marcus's hand slip into mine. Pink confetti. Our daughter. After 3 miscarriages and 2 years of trying, we were finally having the baby girl we'd dreamed of. The cheers from our family and friends still echoed in my ears as I watched my sister-in-law clean pink powder from her hair, laughing as she did. "Sarah," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the celebration. "We need to talk." I turned to him, expecting to see the same joy that had been radiating from his face all afternoon. Instead, I found something else entirely, a shadow of concern that made my stomach drop. His blue eyes, usually so warm and reassuring, held a weight I'd never seen before. "What's wrong?" I asked, instinctively placing my free hand over my growing belly. At 5 months, she was becoming more real every day, her little kicks a constant reminder of the miracle growing inside me. "Is it the baby?" No, he said quickly, squeezing my hand. "The baby's fine. You're fine. It's just..." He glanced around at our guests, his jaw tightening. "Can we go inside? Please." The urgency in his voice sent a chill through me despite the warm October afternoon. I looked around at our celebration, my parents chatting with his mom near the dessert table, our friends taking selfies with the pink balloons, my best friend Emma helping clean up the remnants of the exploded gender reveal box. Everything looked perfect, exactly as we'd planned. "Marcus, you're scaring me," I said, but I followed him anyway as he led me toward the house, his hand never leaving mine. We slipped through the sliding glass door into our kitchen, the sudden quiet a stark contrast to the laughter outside. Marcus immediately went to the window and pulled the curtains closed, which only heightened my anxiety. "What is going on?" I demanded, crossing my arms over my chest. "We have 30 people in our backyard celebrating our daughter, and you're acting like..." "Sarah, sit down," he interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me what's wrong." He ran his hands through his dark hair, a habit I'd grown to recognize as his way of buying time when he was struggling with something difficult. In our 4 years of marriage, I'd seen him do this maybe 5 times. Each time had preceded news that changed everything. "You know how much I love you," he began, and my heart started racing. Nothing good ever started with those words. "Marcus, and you know how much I love our baby girl," he continued, his eyes dropping to my belly. "How much I've wanted this, wanted her, wanted our family." "Then what?" "But there's something I need to tell you about why it took so long for us to get pregnant." His voice cracked slightly on the last word, and I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the cheerful yellow walls we'd painted together last spring seeming to close in around us. Outside, I could hear Emma's distinctive laugh and the sound of someone starting up our speakers again. Life was continuing its normal rhythm, while mine felt like it was about to shatter. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Marcus moved closer, his hands reaching for mine, but I stepped back. Something in his expression told me I was going to need space for whatever was coming. "The doctors said it was unexplained infertility," I said slowly, remembering all those painful appointments, all those tests that showed nothing wrong with either of us. "They said sometimes it just takes time." "That's what they told you," he said quietly. "That's what I told them to tell you." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the back of one of our kitchen chairs, my knuckles white against the wood. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I've been lying to you for 2 years. His voice was barely above a whisper now. "I'm saying that the reason we couldn't get pregnant wasn't unexplained at all. I know exactly why it took so long." The room spun slightly, and I had to sit down after all. My legs felt like they might give out entirely. "Tell me," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded when everything inside me was screaming. Marcus knelt down in front of me, his hands hovering near my knees but not quite touching. "Sarah, I need you to know that everything I did because I love you, because I couldn't bear the thought of losing you." "Tell me," I repeated harder this time. He took a shaky breath. "I was taking medication, something that..." interfered with my fertility. I've been taking it for 3 years." The words seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Outside, someone had started the music again, and I could hear the opening notes of Sweet Caroline, the song that always got played at our family gatherings. The normalcy of it felt obscene. "What medication?" I asked, though part of me already knew I didn't want the answer. "Antidepressants," he said, and the word hung between us like a confession. "High-dose antidepressants that I never told you about." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "You've been taking antidepressants for 3 years and you never told me." "I couldn't," he said, his voice breaking. "I couldn't risk you leaving me. But you could risk letting me think there was something wrong with me." The anger was starting to build now, hot and fierce. "You could risk letting me blame myself for every miscarriage, every negative test, every month that went by without—" "No," he said quickly, "that's not what I wanted. I never wanted you to blame yourself. And what did you want, Marcus?" I stood up abruptly, needing to move, needing to put distance between us. "What was your plan here? To just never tell me? To let me keep thinking we were both just unlucky?" He stood too, his hands reaching for me again. "I stopped taking them," he said. 3 months ago, when we started talking about trying again after the last miscarriage. I stopped taking them, and that's why." He gestured vaguely toward my belly. "That's why I got pregnant," I finished, the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. "Yes." I walked to the window and pushed the curtain aside slightly, looking out at our celebration. Everyone looked so happy, so oblivious to the fact that the foundation of everything we were celebrating was built on lies. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked without turning around. "Why today?" "Because," his voice came from directly behind me, "I can't keep lying to you. Not about this. Not when we're about to have a daughter. Not when you're so happy and you think it's some kind of miracle, and I know it's not. I know it's just me finally being honest about what was wrong." I turned around to face him, and for the first time since I'd known him, Marcus looked like a stranger to me. "What else?" I asked. What else are you lying about?" My voice was steady now, deadly calm, "because this feels like the kind of conversation where everything comes out." He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, I heard Emma calling my name from the backyard. "Nothing else about the pregnancy," he said finally. "Nothing else about the baby. But something else." "Sarah." "Something else, Marcus." He closed his eyes. "Yes." And that's when I knew that this perfect day, this perfect moment we'd been building toward for years, was about to become the day that divided my life into before and after. "Sarah, where are you?" Emma's voice drifted through the sliding door, accompanied by the sound of footsteps on our deck. "Your mom's asking about cutting the cake." I looked at Marcus, who had gone pale at the sound of approaching voices. Everything in me wanted to run outside, to pretend this conversation had never started, to go back to the world where my biggest worry was whether we'd ordered enough pink balloons. "We're coming," I called back, my voice surprisingly normal. Then quieter to Marcus. "We can't do this now." "I know, but no." I held up my hand. "Whatever else you need to tell me, it waits. We have a house full of people celebrating our daughter, and I won't let your secrets ruin that for her." Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, but underneath it, I could see the weight of whatever he was still carrying. "Tonight," I said firmly, "after everyone leaves, you tell me everything." He nodded, running his hands through his hair again. "Okay, yes, tonight." I moved toward the door, then stopped. "And Marcus, if you lie to me again about anything, we're done. Do you understand me?" "I understand." I smoothed my dress, checked my reflection in the glass of the door, and pasted on a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Then I stepped back into the sunshine and the laughter, into the world where everyone still believed in the happy ending we'd been performing. "There she is!" My mother rushed over, her arms full of pink gift bags. "We were about to send a search party. Are you feeling all right, sweetheart? You look a little pale." "Just a bit tired," I said, accepting her hug and breathing in her familiar lavender perfume. "The excitement, you know." Well, sit down then. Emma's been organizing the gifts and everyone's eager to see you open them. I let myself be led to the chair we decorated with pink ribbons, the same chair where I'd sat for my baby shower just 2 months ago. Marcus appeared beside me, his hand resting on my shoulder in what probably looked like a loving gesture to everyone else. To me, it felt like an anchor dragging me down. Before we start with gifts, Emma announced, raising her glass of pink lemonade, I think we need another toast. To Sarah and Marcus, and to their little princess, who's going to be so loved by everyone here. To the princess, everyone chorused, raising their glasses. I smiled and nodded, my hand instinctively moving to my belly. She kicked then, as if responding to all the attention, and despite everything, I felt a rush of pure love for her. Whatever Marcus had done, whatever he was still hiding, none of it was her fault. She was innocent in all of this. She's moving, I said softly, and immediately my mother and Marcus's mom were beside me, asking to feel. Oh my goodness, Marcus's mother, Linda, breathed as the baby kicked against her palm. She's going to be a soccer player. Or a dancer, my mom added. Feel how graceful that was. I caught Marcus watching me, his expression unreadable. When our eyes met, he mouthed, I love you. And I felt my heart break a little more. Because I could see that he meant it, and somehow that made everything worse. The gift opening passed in a blur of pink onesies and tiny shoes, stuffed animals and blankets. Everyone oohed and ahed over each item, and I played my part perfectly. But all I could think about was the conversation waiting for me tonight, the other shoe that was about to drop. This one's from me, Emma said, handing me a beautifully wrapped box. I saw it and immediately thought of you two. Inside was a wooden picture frame with our little miracle engraved across the bottom. The word miracle seemed to mock me now, knowing what I knew about why it had taken so long. It's perfect, I managed to say, hugging Emma tightly. Thank you. I thought you could put her first ultrasound picture in it, Emma said, or maybe a photo from today. This is such a special day for you both. Yes, I agreed, my voice barely steady. Very special. The party continued around me, but I felt like I was watching it from underwater. Conversations happened, people laughed, Marcus played the perfect expectant father, and I smiled until my cheeks ached. When my college friend Jennifer asked about names, I heard myself discussing our top choices as if nothing had changed. When Marcus's brother asked about the nursery, I described our plans for the pale yellow walls and white furniture, as if I wasn't silently calculating how long I'd been living with a stranger. You're glowing, my Aunt Carol told me as she was getting ready to leave. Pregnancy suits you, dear. You look happier than I've seen you in years. I thanked her, hugged her goodbye, and wondered if she could see how much effort it was taking me to keep standing. One by one, our guests began to leave. The sun was setting, painting our backyard in shades of gold and pink that would have been beautiful if I'd been able to appreciate them. Emma stayed to help clean up as she always did, and I found myself desperately wanting to tell her everything. But Marcus was always within earshot, carrying trash bags and folding chairs, playing the helpful husband perfectly. I should get going too, Emma said finally, when the backyard was restored to its normal state. I have that early meeting tomorrow. Thank you for everything, I said, hugging her at the front door, for helping with the setup, for the beautiful frame, for just being here. Of course, she said, pulling back to look at me. Are you sure you're okay? You seemed a little off toward the end there. Just tired, I repeated. It's been a big day. She studied my face for a moment longer, then nodded. Call me if you need anything, okay? I mean it. Anything at all. After she left, I found Marcus in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher with the same methodical precision he brought to everything. For a moment, I just watched him, trying to reconcile this man, the one who remembered to rinse every dish, who had spent all afternoon making sure our guests were comfortable, who had held my hand through 3 miscarriages, with the man who had been lying to me for years. Is that everything? I asked. He looked up, and I saw my own exhaustion reflected in his eyes. I think so. Your mom took the leftover cake, and I put all the gifts in the nursery. The nursery. The room we'd painted together, where we'd spent hours assembling the crib and debating the placement of the changing table. The room that represented all our hopes and dreams for this baby, for our family. The room that now felt contaminated by secrets. "We need to talk," I said. He nodded, closing the dishwasher and turning to face me fully. "Do you want to sit in the living room?" No. I needed to be able to move, to pace if necessary. "Here is fine." He leaned against the counter, his arms crossed over his chest. In the harsh fluorescent light of the kitchen, he looked older than his 32 years, tired in a way that went deeper than just physical exhaustion. "Tell me about the depression," I said. "Start there." He was quiet for so long that I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "It started about 6 months after we got married, 4 years ago." "Yes. And you never told me." I couldn't. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. "Sarah, you have to understand. You were so happy. We were so happy. I didn't want to burden you with my problems." "Your problems?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Your problems became my problems the moment you decided to handle them alone. Your problems became my problems when they started affecting our ability to have children." "I know that now." "Do you?" I stepped closer, anger flaring in my chest. "Because it sounds like you think this was some noble sacrifice you made to protect me, but what you actually did was make me a stranger in my own marriage. That's not—" "What triggered it?" I interrupted. "The depression. What happened 6 months after our wedding?" He was quiet again, and I could see him weighing his words, trying to decide how much truth he could afford to tell me. "Don't you dare lie to me again," I warned. "I lost my job," he said finally. "Not the one I told you about, where I said I was laid off due to budget cuts. A different job, one you didn't know I had." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "What do you mean, a job I didn't know you had?" "I was working 2 jobs, he said. "The consulting work you knew about, and another job, at night, to pay for the wedding, for the down payment on this house, for all the things I thought you deserved." "What kind of job?" "It doesn't matter now. It matters to me." He closed his eyes. "I was driving for a delivery service, late nights, weekends. Sometimes I'd work until 3 in the morning and then be at the consulting job by 8. I tried to process this. "For how long?" "About a year. From when we got engaged until 6 months after the wedding. So all through our engagement, all through planning our wedding, all through the first months of our marriage, you were working yourself to death, and I had no idea." "I wanted to provide for you," he said. "I wanted to give you everything. I wanted honesty," I shot back. "I wanted a partner, not a martyr." "I know that now," he repeated, and I wanted to scream at the inadequacy of those words. "So what happened? Why did you lose the job?" "I fell asleep at the wheel," he said quietly. "I crashed the delivery truck. No one was hurt, but the company fired me immediately." "Jesus, Marcus. That's when the depression hit. Really hit. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function. I was so ashamed of what I'd done, of lying to you, of failing at something I thought I was handling perfectly." "So you went to a doctor?" "Yes." "And you got medication?" "Yes." "And you never told me about any of it." "I couldn't bear the thought of you looking at me differently," he said, "of you thinking I was weak, or that you'd married someone who couldn't take care of you. So instead you let me think I was broken," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. "You let me think there was something wrong with my body, with my ability to carry our children. I never wanted that, but you chose it," I said. "When you decided to keep taking medication that you knew was affecting your fertility, when you let me go through test after test, when you held me while I cried after every miscarriage, you chose to let me believe it was my fault." "It wasn't your fault," he said desperately. "I never thought it was your fault. But you let me think it was." He had no answer for that, because we both knew it was true. "What else?" I asked, exhaustion suddenly hitting me like a wave. "You said there was something else." "Sarah, you're tired. Maybe we should—" "What else, Marcus?" He looked at me for a long moment. and I could see him making a decision that would change everything between us forever. The medication, he said slowly. It's not just affecting my fertility. What do you mean? I mean there are other side effects. Ones that are going to affect our marriage, our future, our family. And with those words, I knew we weren't even close to the bottom of this yet. The kitchen felt too small, too bright, too normal for the conversation we were having. I needed air, space, something other than these four walls that had witnessed so many happy moments and were now containing the destruction of everything I thought I knew about my marriage. What kind of side effects? I asked, though part of me was terrified to know. Marcus looked down at his hands, clasped so tightly in front of him that his knuckles were white. The medication I'm on, it affects more than just fertility. Marcus, it affects libido, he said quietly, and performance. I stared at him, trying to understand what he was telling me. What do you mean, performance? I mean that for the past 3 years, every time we've been intimate, I've had to take other medication first, Viagra, sometimes stronger things. The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the counter, my legs suddenly unsteady. Every time, I whispered, every time. For 3 years. Yes. I thought back through our intimate moments over the past 3 years, trying to process this new information. The times he'd excuse himself to the bathroom beforehand. The times he'd suggest we wait until later, until he'd had time to prepare. The times our spontaneity had gradually disappeared, replaced by a careful choreography I'd attributed to the stress of trying to conceive. Oh my God, I breathed. Sarah, no. I held up my hand, needing space to think. Just no. I walked to the sliding door and stepped out onto the deck. The October air was crisp now that the sun had set, and I welcomed the cold against my skin. It helped clear my head, helped me focus on something other than the feeling that my entire world was collapsing. Marcus followed me outside, but he stayed by the door, giving me space. How long have you been planning to tell me this? I asked without turning around. I've wanted to tell you for months, he said. Years, really. But I didn't know how. So you decided to wait until I was 5 months pregnant with our first child. I decided to tell you when I couldn't live with the lie anymore. I turned to face him. What changed? What made today different? He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him struggling with something else, some other piece of truth he wasn't sure he was ready to share. The medication, he said finally. I can't just stop taking it. What do you mean? I mean I tried. When I decided I was ready to tell you everything, I tried to wean myself off, but the withdrawal, Sarah, it's bad. Really bad. How bad? I can't function, I can't work, can't sleep, can't even get out of bed some days, and the thoughts... He trailed off, running his hands through his hair again. What thoughts? Dark thoughts, he said quietly. Thoughts about ending everything. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I felt my anger shift, not disappearing but mixing with something else. Fear, concern, the protective instinct that had been part of loving him for so long. Are you saying you're suicidal? I asked. I'm saying that when I try to stop taking the medication, I understand why some people make that choice. I walked back to him, my hands instinctively reaching for his before I caught myself. Marcus, have you talked to a doctor about this? Several doctors. And they all say the same thing. That I need to stay on the medication, at least for now. That trying to come off it while dealing with major life changes like having a baby would be dangerous. So you're going to stay on antidepressants that kill your sex drive and require you to take other medication just to be intimate with your wife. I don't know, he said honestly. I don't know what I'm going to do. I sat down heavily in one of our patio chairs, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Let me see if I understand this correctly. You've been depressed for 4 years, medicated for 3, lying to me about both, and now you're telling me that you can't stop the medication that's been affecting our fertility and our sex life because you might become suicidal. Yes, that's essentially it. And you're telling me this now because I can't keep living a lie, he said. Because every day that passes, every day I don't tell you makes it worse. Because I love you and I love our daughter and I want to be a good husband and father, but I can't do that if I'm not honest with you. But you can do it while lying to me for 4 years? I thought I could, he said. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From this, he said, gesturing between us. From having to deal with my problems, from having to question whether you married the right person. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I could see the weight he'd been carrying, the exhaustion that went deeper than just a long day, the careful way he'd been moving through our life together, always making sure he didn't let his mask slip. Marcus, I said slowly, do you understand that by lying to me, you made me question everything anyway? What do you mean? I mean that I spent 3 years thinking I was broken. I went to doctor after doctor, had test after test, blamed my body for every miscarriage and every month that passed without a positive pregnancy test. I questioned whether I was meant to be a mother, whether there was something fundamentally wrong with me. I never wanted that. But you chose it, I said. You chose to let me suffer rather than deal with your own problems honestly. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself, I corrected. You were trying to avoid having to face the consequences of your choices. He was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he said finally. You're absolutely right. What else? I asked. What? What else aren't you telling me? Because I can't do this again, Marcus. I can't have another conversation in 6 months where you reveal another layer of lies. Nothing else, he said. I've told you everything. Have you? Yes. I studied his face, looking for signs of deception, but I realized I no longer trusted my ability to read him. How could I, when he'd been performing for me for 4 years? I need to think, I said, standing up. I need space to process all of this. Okay, he said. Do you want me to stay somewhere else tonight? The question hung between us, and I realized that this was the moment when everything became real, when we moved from conversation to consequence. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know what I want right now. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to know that I love you. I love you and our baby more than anything in the world. Everything I did because I was afraid of losing you. But you're losing me anyway, I said quietly. Don't you see that? By lying to me, by making decisions about our life without including me, you've already lost me. The person you've been married to for the past 3 years isn't really me. It's some version of me that doesn't know who you really are. We can fix this, he said desperately. We can work through this. Can we? I asked. Because I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to trust you again. I don't know how to be intimate with you, knowing that you've been medicating yourself just to want me. I don't know how to plan for our daughter's future with someone who makes major decisions about our family without consulting me. I'll do anything, he said. I'll go to therapy. I'll find a different medication. You'll what? I interrupted. You'll make more decisions about our life without talking to me first? The words stung, and I could see it in his face. But they were true, and we both knew it. I need time, I said. I need space to figure out what this means for us. How much time? I don't know. And what about the baby? What about our daughter? I placed my hand over my belly, feeling her move beneath my palm. She's my daughter too, Marcus. She's my daughter, and I'll do whatever I need to do to protect her, even if that means protecting her from the damage that secrets can do to a family. What does that mean? It means I need to think about what kind of family I want her to grow up in. Whether that's one where her parents are honest with each other, or one where we pretend everything is fine while lying about the fundamentals of our relationship. Sarah, I'm going to bed, I said, cutting him off. I'm exhausted, and I can't process any more of this tonight. Are you asking me to leave? I looked at him, this man I'd loved for 6 years, married for 4, and was now carrying a child with. This man who had been a stranger to me for longer than I'd known. I'm asking you to give me space to think, I said. What that looks like is up to you. I walked past him into the house, through the kitchen where we'd had the first part of this conversation, up the stairs to our bedroom. Our bedroom, with its king-size bed and matching nightstands, the framed photos of our wedding and our various anniversaries, the ultrasound pictures from our current pregnancy tucked into the corner of the mirror. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to imagine what came next. How did you rebuild a marriage from a foundation of lies? How did you learn to trust someone who had been deceiving you about fundamental aspects of who they were? And how did you do any of it while preparing to bring a child into the world? I heard Marcus moving around downstairs, heard the front door open and close, heard his car start in the driveway. He was giving me space, just as I'd asked. But as I sat alone in our bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of the life we'd built together, I wondered if space was enough to bridge the gap between who I thought he was and who he actually turned out to be. I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling our daughter move restlessly inside me, as if she could sense the chaos in the world she was preparing to enter. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face as he told me about the years of lies, heard his voice explaining how he'd let me believe I was broken, rather than admit his own brokenness. By morning, I had made several decisions. The first was that I couldn't stay in this house, surrounded by memories that now felt contaminated by deception. The second was that I needed to talk to someone who could help me think clearly, someone who wasn't Marcus, wasn't family, wasn't invested in the outcome of our marriage. I called Dr. Jennifer Martinez, the therapist I'd seen briefly after our second miscarriage, at exactly 8 a.m. when her office opened. "Sarah," she said warmly when she came to the phone, "how nice to hear from you. How are you doing?" "Not well," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I need to schedule an appointment as soon as possible." "Of course. Can you tell me what's going on?" "My husband has been lying to me for years about some fundamental things, and I'm 5 months pregnant, and I don't know how to move forward." There was a pause. "I have an opening this afternoon at 3. Would that work?" "Yes. Thank you." After I hung up, I called Emma. "Hey, how are you feeling after yesterday?" she asked. "You seemed really tired by the end." "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay," she said, her voice immediately more serious. "Over the past few years, have you noticed anything off about Marcus?" "Off how?" "I don't know. Different, like he was hiding something or not being completely honest." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Sarah, what's going on?" "I can't get into it right now, but I need to know. Have you noticed anything?" "Well," she said slowly, "there have been a few times when I thought he seemed, I don't know, distant maybe. Like he was going through the motions of being happy but not really feeling it. And sometimes when you'd talk about the fertility stuff, he'd get this look on his face like he was uncomfortable with the conversation." "What kind of look? Guilty, maybe? Like he knew something you didn't?" "But Sarah, I just assumed it was because men handle these things differently than women do. I didn't think it meant anything serious." "It meant something serious," I said. "What happened?" "I can't talk about it right now. But Emma, I need you to know that if I call you and ask you to come over, or if I need somewhere to stay, it's not about anything you did or didn't do. It's about my marriage falling apart." "Oh my God, Sarah. Are you safe? Is the baby okay?" "We're physically safe," I said. "But I don't know about anything else right now. Do you want me to come over?" "Not yet, but maybe later. I'll call you." After I hung up, I sat in the kitchen and tried to eat breakfast, but everything tasted like cardboard. I kept thinking about Marcus, wondering where he'd spent the night, whether he was okay. Despite everything, I was still worried about him. 4 years of loving someone doesn't just disappear overnight, even when you discover they've been lying to you. My phone buzzed with a text from him. "I'm staying at my brother's. I want to give you space, but I need you to know that I'm here when you're ready to talk. I love you." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. At 3 p.m., I sat in Dr. Martinez's office, the same comfortable chair where I'd processed my grief after losing our second pregnancy. But this felt different. This wasn't about loss. This was about discovering that the foundation of my marriage had been built on quicksand. "Tell me what's happened," Dr. Martinez said gently. I told her everything. The gender reveal party, Marcus pulling me aside, the revelation about the antidepressants and fertility issues, the additional medications he'd been taking, the years of lies. As I spoke, I watched her face for judgment, for shock, for some indication of how bad this really was. "How are you feeling right now?" she asked when I finished. "Angry," I said immediately. "Betrayed, confused, like I don't know who I've been married to." Those are all completely understandable reactions. "But I also feel guilty," I continued, "because part of me keeps thinking that if I'd been a better wife, if I'd paid more attention, if I'd asked the right questions, maybe he would have felt like he could tell me the truth." "Sarah," Doctor Martinez said firmly, "I want you to listen to me carefully. Your husband's decision to lie to you for years was not your fault. His inability to communicate with you about his mental health was not your fault. His choice to let you believe you were responsible for your fertility struggles was not your fault." I felt tears starting, the first I'd shed since this all began. But what if I could have helped him? What if he was right to think I wouldn't be able to handle it? Could you have handled it? I thought about the question seriously. I don't know. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that if he'd come to me 4 years ago and said he was struggling with depression and needed help, I would have supported him. What makes you think you wouldn't have? Because I wasn't struggling with depression. Because I was happy, and maybe that made me seem like someone who wouldn't understand. Or maybe, Dr. Martinez suggested, your happiness made him feel like he couldn't burden you with his problems. But that's still his choice, Sarah. That's still his decision to make assumptions about your capacity for understanding rather than giving you the chance to prove him wrong. "So what do I do now?" I asked. "How do I move forward? What do you want to do?" "I want to trust my husband again. I want to believe that we can work through this and build something stronger, but I don't know how to get from where we are now to where I want us to be." "That's okay. You don't have to figure it all out today." "But I'm having his baby in 4 months," I said, my hand moving instinctively to my belly. "I can't just take years to figure this out." "You're right that you have some time pressures that other couples dealing with similar issues might not have. But that doesn't mean you have to make permanent decisions right now." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can take things one step at a time. You can decide what you need today, this week, this month, without committing to what the rest of your life looks like." "And what do I need today?" "You tell me." I thought about it. I need to know that he's getting help for his depression, real help, not just medication he takes in secret. That sounds reasonable. I need him to understand that trust isn't something that just comes back automatically, that he's going to have to earn it. Also reasonable. And I need to know that he's committed to being honest with me going forward, even when the truth is difficult. "How would you know that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "That's the problem. How do you trust someone who's been lying to you for years when they say they're going to stop lying?" That's a question a lot of couples in your situation struggle with. Are there a lot of couples in my situation? More than you might think. Secrets about mental health, about medication, about the things people do to try to protect their partners from their struggles. It's unfortunately not uncommon. And do they work through it? Some do, some don't. It depends on a lot of factors. Like what? Like whether both people are willing to do the hard work of rebuilding. Like whether the person who was lying is truly committed to change, or whether they're just sorry they got caught. Like whether the person who was lied to can find a way to forgive without forgetting. I sat with that for a moment. I don't know if I can forgive him. You don't have to know that yet. But what if I can't? What if this is just too big? Then you'll make different choices. But Sarah, you don't have to decide the fate of your marriage today. You just have to decide what you need in order to feel safe and supported right now. I need him to get help. Okay. I need some space to process all of this without feeling pressured to make decisions about our future. That makes sense. And I need to know that our daughter is going to be okay, regardless of what happens between Marcus and me. What would make you feel confident about that? I don't know. I guess I need to know that if we can't make our marriage work, we can at least be good co-parents. Have you and Marcus talked about that possibility? No, we've barely talked about anything. Yesterday feels like it happened years ago. It sounds like you have some conversations ahead of you. I guess I do. When I left Dr. Martinez's office, I felt clearer about what I needed, but no less overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Marcus and I were facing. I drove home slowly, dreading the empty house, but knowing I needed time to think before I talked to him again. But when I pulled into our driveway, his car was there. I found him in the nursery, sitting in the rocking chair we'd bought just last month. He was holding one of the stuffed animals from yesterday's gifts, a pink elephant that Emma had picked out. "I thought you were staying at your brother's," I said from the doorway. I am. I just came by to get some clothes, and I ended up in here. I looked around the room, the crib we'd assembled together, the changing table he'd insisted on building himself, the bookshelf already filled with children's books we'd been collecting for months. "It's hard to believe she'll be here soon," I said. 4 months, he said quietly. "Marcus, we need to talk about what happens next." He looked up at me, and I could see that he hadn't slept either. "Okay. I went to see a therapist today." "Good. That's good. I need you to get help too, real help, not just medication you manage on your own." "I've been thinking about that," he said. "I called my doctor this morning and asked for a referral to a psychiatrist, someone who can help me figure out a better treatment plan." "When?" "I have an appointment Thursday." It was Monday, "and I want to come with you." He looked surprised. "You do?" "Not to the appointment itself, but to the office. I want to meet the doctor, and I want them to know that I exist and that your treatment affects both of us." "Okay, and I want us to see a marriage counselor. Together." "Yes, whatever you want. This isn't about what I want, Marcus. This is about what we need if we're going to have any chance of making this work. Do you think we can make it work?" I looked at him, sitting in our daughter's nursery, holding a toy elephant, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I think we owe it to her to try. And to us? I don't know about us yet." He nodded, accepting the painful honesty of my answer. "What do you need from me right now?" "I need you to be patient while I figure out how to trust you again. I need you to be completely honest with me, even when it's hard. And I need you to understand that earning back trust is going to take time." "I understand. Do you? Because this isn't going to be quick or easy. I can't just flip a switch and go back to believing everything you tell me." "I know. And I need you to get help for the depression, not just because it's affecting our marriage, but because you deserve to feel better, and because our daughter deserves a father who's healthy." "I want that too." "Then prove it." He stood up, still holding the elephant. "Sarah, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but can I hug you?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to maintain the distance that felt safe, but part of me missed him, missed the comfort of his arms, missed feeling like we were on the same team. "Okay," I said. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around me carefully, as if I might break. I felt our daughter kick between us, and despite everything, I felt a moment of hope. We were broken, but we weren't beyond repair. Not yet. "I love you," he whispered into my hair. "I know," I said. "But love isn't enough anymore. We need trust. We need honesty. We need to build something new. I want to build something new. Then let's start tomorrow." 3 months later, I was sitting in our marriage counselor's office, watching Marcus explain to Dr. Sarah Chen why he'd missed his medication 2 days in a row. "I wasn't trying to hide it," he was saying. "I just forgot, and then I was afraid to tell Sarah because I didn't want her to think I was being careless with my treatment." So instead of telling her you'd forgotten, you what?" Dr. Chen asked. "I pretended everything was fine until the withdrawal symptoms got so bad that I couldn't hide them anymore." Dr. Chen looked at me. "Sarah, how did you feel when you realized what was happening?" "Frustrated," I said, "because we've talked about this. We've talked about how the small lies are just as damaging as the big ones." "And scared," I added. Because if he can't tell me something as simple as forgetting his medication, how do I know he'll tell me about bigger things? Marcus, Dr. Chen said, what do you think Sarah needs from you in situations like this? Honesty, he said immediately. Even when I'm ashamed of what I have to tell her, and what makes it hard to be honest, the fear that she'll leave me. And Sarah, what would actually make you more likely to leave? The lying, I said without hesitation. I can handle him struggling with his medication, with his depression, with the side effects of treatment. What I can't handle is him making decisions about what I can and can't know. This had been the pattern for the past 3 months. Small steps forward, occasional steps back, and a slow, painful process of learning how to communicate with each other honestly. Some days were better than others. Marcus had switched psychiatrists and was working with someone who specialized in helping people find the right medication balance. He'd been completely open with me about his treatment, letting me come to appointments when I wanted to, sharing what he learned about managing his depression. The fertility issue had resolved itself. I was now 8 months pregnant, due in just 3 weeks, but the intimacy issues were still a work in progress. It was hard to be vulnerable with someone when you were still rebuilding trust. It was hard to feel connected when you were constantly aware of the artificial nature of his responses to medication. How are you both feeling about becoming parents soon? Dr. Chen asked. Excited, Marcus said, and terrified. Terrified how? That I'm going to mess this up the way I messed up our marriage, that I'm going to make bad decisions about what to tell her, what to protect her from. Sarah, I'm excited too, I said, but I'm also worried about what kind of example we're setting. I don't want her to grow up thinking that love means protecting people from the truth. What do you want her to learn about love? That it's honest, that it's safe to be yourself with the people who love you, that trust is something you build every day, not something you assume will always be there. Those sound like things you're both learning, Dr. Chen observed. We are, Marcus said. But it's hard. Change is hard, she agreed, especially when you're changing patterns that have been in place for years. Sometimes I wonder if we would have been better off if I'd just never told her, Marcus said quietly. The words hit me like a slap. What? I mean, you were happy before you knew. We were happy. The baby was healthy. We had a good life. Marcus, Dr. Chen interrupted. What do you think you're saying right now? I don't know. I guess I'm saying that sometimes the truth causes more pain than it prevents. But it wasn't the truth that caused the pain, I said, anger flaring in my chest. It was the lies. The truth is what's giving us a chance to fix things. Is it? Because you're still angry. You still don't trust me. Sometimes I think you were better off not knowing. Better off living a lie? Better off being happy. I wasn't happy, I said, my voice rising. I was confused. I was blaming myself for things that weren't my fault. I was living with a stranger and calling him my husband. But you didn't know that then. That doesn't make it less true. Okay, Dr. Chen said. Let's take a breath here. Marcus, it sounds like you're feeling discouraged about the progress you've made. I am, he admitted. I've been honest with her for 3 months. I've been in therapy. I've been taking my medication consistently. And she still looks at me sometimes like she doesn't know who I am. Sarah. Because sometimes I don't, I said. Sometimes you say things like what you just said, and I realize we still have completely different ideas about what honesty means in a relationship. What do you mean? I mean, you just told me you think I would have been better off if you'd kept lying to me. How is that different from the thinking that got us into this mess in the first place? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I see what you mean. Do you? Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. You still think you get to decide what's best for me. You still think your job is to protect me from difficult truths rather than to trust me to handle them. I'm trying to change that. I know you are, but change isn't just about behavior, Marcus. It's about how you think. And sometimes, I'm not sure your thinking has really changed. What would convince you that it has? I thought about the question seriously. Time, I guess. Consistency. Proof that when things get hard, you choose honesty instead of protection. even if the honesty hurts, especially if the honesty hurts. Dr. Chen looked between us. It sounds like you're both still figuring out what your new relationship looks like. We are, I said. Some days I feel hopeful about it. Other days I wonder if we're just postponing the inevitable. What would the inevitable be? Divorce, I said simply, admitting that some things can't be fixed. Is that what you want? No, but I'm not sure what I want is possible. What do you want? I want to feel safe with him again. I want to trust that when he tells me something, it's the truth. I want to believe that we're making decisions about our family together, not that he's making decisions and then managing my reaction to them. Marcus, how do you respond to that? I want those things too, he said, but I don't know how to prove to her that I've changed. Maybe, Dr. Chen suggested, the question isn't how to prove you've changed, but how to keep changing, how to make different choices consistently over time. What does that look like practically? It looks like what you did when you forgot your medication. It looks like telling Sarah immediately before the problem gets bigger. It looks like asking for help when you need it instead of trying to handle everything alone. And it looks like accepting that rebuilding trust is a process, I added, not something that happens all at once. Can you live with that? Dr. Chen asked Marcus. Can you live with the uncertainty while Sarah decides whether she can trust you again? I have to, he said, because the alternative is losing my family. And Sarah, can you live with the possibility that rebuilding this relationship might take longer than you'd like? I don't have much choice, I said, placing my hand on my belly. She's coming in 3 weeks, regardless of whether we figured everything out. How do you feel about that? Scared, I admitted. I'm scared that we're going to bring her into a situation that's still broken. What would make you feel better about that? Knowing that even if Marcus and I can't fix our marriage, we can at least be honest with each other about what's best for her. Marcus, I want the same thing, he said. I want to be a good father, whether or not I can figure out how to be a good husband again. Those are both important goals, Dr. Chen said, and they're not mutually exclusive. What do you mean? I mean that learning to be honest with each other, learning to communicate about difficult things, learning to make decisions together, those skills will serve you as parents regardless of what happens with your marriage. I felt our daughter kick strong and insistent, and I wondered what she would think of all this when she was old enough to understand. Would she be proud of us for fighting to rebuild something that was broken? Or would she wish we'd been wise enough to know when to let go? I have a question, I said. What's that? What if we can't get back to where we were? What if we can build something new, but it's different from what we had before? Would that be okay? Dr. Chen asked. I don't know. Maybe. I think what we had before was built on some shaky foundations anyway. Like what? Like the idea that love means never having to deal with difficult things, like the belief that a good relationship is one where both people are happy all the time. What would you want to build instead? Something real, I said. Something that can handle the truth even when it's ugly. Marcus, I want that too, he said. I'm just not sure I know how to do it. You're learning, Dr. Chen said. You both are. As we left the appointment, I felt cautiously optimistic. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but we were learning, we were changing, we were choosing to stay and do the hard work instead of walking away. That evening, as we were having dinner together for the first time in weeks, Marcus looked up from his plate and said, I have something to tell you. My heart stopped. What? My psychiatrist wants to try reducing my medication after the baby comes. She thinks I might be ready to handle a lower dose. I waited for the rest, for the catch, for the thing he was afraid to tell me. That's it, he said, reading my expression. That's the whole thing. She thinks I'm stable enough to try tapering down slowly. How do you feel about that? Scared, he said honestly, but hopeful. And I wanted you to know about it from the beginning, not after I'd already started. It was such a small thing, really. A simple piece of information shared in real time, but it felt like progress. It felt like the beginning of something new. Thank you for telling me, I said. Thank you for not running away when I told you everything else. I looked at him across our dinner table, this man I was slowly learning to know again, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months, hope. "We're going to be okay," I said. "Maybe not the way we were before, but okay. You think so?" "I think we're going to keep trying, and maybe that's enough for now." 2 weeks later, our daughter was born. 8 pounds, 2 ounces, with her father's dark hair and what I hoped would be her mother's capacity for truth. As I held her for the first time, Marcus beside me with tears streaming down his face, I realized that this was our chance to start over. To build a family based on honesty instead of protection, trust instead of fear. It wouldn't be easy. We still had work to do, trust to rebuild, patterns to change. But looking at our daughter's perfect face, I knew it would be worth it. "What do you think, little one?" I whispered to her. "Are you ready to teach your parents how to be brave?" She looked up at me with dark, serious eyes, and I took that as a yes. 6 months later, Marcus and I were still in counseling, still learning how to be honest with each other, still figuring out how to build something new from the pieces of what we'd broken. Some days were harder than others, but our daughter was thriving, and slowly, carefully, so were we. Trust, it turned out, wasn't something you earned back all at once. It was something you built day by day, choice by choice, truth by truth. And while we weren't the same couple we'd been before, we were becoming something better. 2 people who had learned that love without honesty was just a beautiful lie, and that the truth, however difficult, was always worth fighting for.